Welcome to the Art of Lifting podcast. Today I am joined by Marcellus Williams, also known as the Swolefessor online. Did you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, Marcellus Williams, aka the Swolefessor on YouTube and Instagram. I have been a personal trainer since, like 2015, 2016. I've been an online coach with more of an emphasis on powerlifting since 2017. I coach lifters at the local, national, and international level. I'm also a powerlifter myself, formerly a 74 kg lifter. Best total at that weight class was 700 kg, 505 dots, and I'm currently now a very light 83 kg lifter, trying to slowly fill up the weight class. I'm also one of the owners of Powerlifting Now, which is a subscription-based service, which is all about powerlifting, where the focus is to give you guys all the tools you need to become the best powerlifter, the best coach, the best mental coach, the best nutritionist, anything involving powerlifting. We try to cover everything as far as that. And I also have a YouTube channel that I passed in 2016 with over 500 videos on it, which is all about educating people on health, fitness, social well-being, as well as showing my own training. So without getting too long-winded, that's me.
Perfect. No, that was a great introduction. And you've spoken briefly there about quite a few things I wanted to kind of ask you about in more detail anyway. The first question I ask everyone, though, is how did you find powerlifting in the first place?
Yeah, so it's actually funny because I discovered powerlifting about 2-3 years before I actually even started in it. So it was my junior, senior year in high school. And so for background, so in high school, instead of doing like team sports, like football or basketball like that, I was actually doing boxing and MMA through a separate organization. So basically, for me, the most interaction I got with a lot of like the athletes at my school was just through weight training, because I would still work out with them and weight train with them and stuff like that. One of the head football coaches, he and I got really cool because he actually taught one of the PE classes where he kind of got me even more into weightlifting than I already was at. So basically, while working out with them, a lot of football players, and this is very common here in Texas, they do like powerlifting in their off season. The football coach told me, like, "Hey man, you should do this. You'd be really good at this. Like, you got a good bench, got a good squat for your size." Like at that point, I was like, I went into high school weighing like 130 pounds, like 60 kilos. and then I came out weighing about like 65 kilos or whatever. So for my weight, my squat and bench was pretty decent. I never deadlifted, but like, oh, that's fine. We can teach you that. So I was like, oh yeah. So like, just do these 3 lifts and the biggest total wins. Like, yeah. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm down. So I go to one of the practices and I get them. The coach is like, here, put this on. He hands me a bench shirt, and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, this is what you bench in. It's like it's your equipment. Like it'll help you lift more. And that already kind of turned me off. I was like, help me lift more. I was like, I don't want assistance in what I'm lifting. But I was like, okay, let me try to get it on. It took me like 20 minutes to get that thing on by myself. Like I had no help, nothing like that. It took me 20 minutes to get it on. Don't even know if it was the right size for me. And after getting 20 minutes to get it on and then taking another 10, 15 minutes to get it off, I go to the coach, I hand it to him, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So that's how I heard about powerlifting. Then it wasn't until my junior year in college, a couple years later, where I discovered raw powerlifting. And basically, I was working out at my university rec center, and there were these 2 dudes, a guy named Eddie and a guy named Taskin. Anytime I saw them, they were always squatting really big, heavy weight, or deadlifting really heavy weight, and they were around my size. So I'm like, these guys are so strong for squat and deadlift. So I just went up to them. I was like, hey, I was wondering if you guys could give me some pointers on like how you got your squat and deadlift so strong. And they kind of look at each other and they look at me and they're like, we'll help you with that if you help us with our bench press. And I was like, deal, like absolutely. So started working out with them, and then they eventually, a couple weeks in, they're like, hey man, so we're looking to try to start a powerlifting team here at our university. Like, issue that. And I was like, nah, because my idea of powerlifting is still what I experienced in high school. And I told them, like, oh no, man, it's raw now. I'm like, oh, yeah, like, wear a belt, reps, knee sleeves, but there's no knee wraps, there's no bench shirt, nothing like that. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, that sounds interesting. So 3 of us and like a handful of others, we started the University of North Texas Powerlifting Organization, which is now an official sports team club for UNT, which is awesome. But I think that was like September when I first kind of got into that, and then I did my first meet in November, just like 2 months later. I got some random powerlifting program they gave me. Went and did my first meet, won my first meet, went 8 for 9. I got my third squat, but I had some up and down motion, so I went 8 for 9. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was just a really good time, and that's kind of what got me into it. After that, I did a couple of meets. I want to say I did like one more meet in 2016. Then I did a couple meets in 2017. But then 2018 is when I really started like just full blown taking it very seriously, staying consistent with powerlifting program. Because up until 2018, I would do like a powerlifting program for like 8 weeks to a meet, and then just get off and do whatever I want. Like that's how I was going about it. Because it was working, so I was like, yeah, this is fine. But that's how I got into powerlifting, was basically through meeting a couple of guys at my university and seeing, y'all squat big. How are y'all doing that? And one thing led to another.
No, that's really, really interesting. Especially like you said, obviously originally it was going to be equipped, and obviously that is a very big thing in America. Like a lot, like Austin Perkins, for example, like easy example to use. He started equipped, I think, didn't he, back in the high school kind of time, I think. And a lot of like Alexis Jones, I think, as well, like big names in America. Like that's where kind of the roots are. And it is still a big thing over there as well, I think, isn't it? Equipped in university. Am I right in thinking that?
So it's still pretty big as far as like high school. As far as university, I mean, there's definitely still colleges that have equipped teams, stuff like that. But I think for universities, a lot of the raw I think it's kind of overtaken the equipment for at least at the college level.
Yeah, which I think, to be honest, is quite a big theme here as well. Like I think we're kind of maybe a little bit ahead in that, and the equip it's kind of growing again at younger levels, I think, but definitely seen a massive surge in classic over the last few years. What point then? So you said you worked as a PT to start with around the 2015 time, 2016 time, which is kind of when you started competing. At what point did you then start to go into the powerlifting side, or did you kind of merge the two from the beginning?
Yeah, so definitely not, because so fun fact, it's just so funny looking at what my life is at now, because I really make a full-time living, provide for my family, pay for my house with powerlifting. And if you would have asked me if I was going to powerlifting, like, oh, do you want to be a powerlifting coach? I would have laughed for you even thinking that. Because even when I was personal training, that was not necessarily like an end goal for me. So basically, when I was in university when I transferred to UNT for my junior and senior year, my goal was to avoid student loans. So I didn't have any student loans my first 2 years. I was like, if I can get these next 2 years, those student loans, I'm in a good spot. So I already was working 2 jobs to try to avoid that. But then I got a third job being a supervisor at the rec center, the rec center, clean things, stuff like that. Well, through that, they offered like basically like a sponsorship where like, hey, we take one of our workers every year from the rec center, and we pay for their certification to be a personal trainer if you can show that you're interested in that. And I've been interested in fitness since I was 11 years old, as far as just working out and stuff like that. I didn't really have an intention of being a personal trainer. I listened to my degree in kinesiology, but I wanted to go into either corporate fitness or being a certified strength coach. But I'm like, okay, you know what? Getting a certification doesn't hurt me. I can make a little bit more money, kind of make it work with my other 3 jobs, and hopefully avoid student loans. But once I got certified and started training people out of the rec center, I really just fell in love with it. Like the whole process of, wow, I'm taking something that I'm passionate about, like working out, fitness, stuff like that, helping and equipping these people with the knowledge and skills they need for it. And I'm seeing it change their lives. Not just like, of course, the obvious, oh, they're getting more muscular, they're losing weight, but the confidence that I was seeing in a lot of my clients over time from getting that. And just how appreciative they were. It's like, wow, like this is something that to me at the time was very simple. Like, oh, people can look this up themselves or have it themselves. But there's so many people that just don't know. There's so much information, they don't know how to filter it. So you being that filter for them and doing something that directly impacts their life and their health, I really fell in love with that. So really that was going to kind of be my focus initially. And even when I started powerlifting, the most I did as far as coaching was like helping a few of the other team members who maybe like were newer to it and trying to like encourage them and help them stronger with what knowledge that I did have. A lot of my knowledge is still more focused on general strength and hypertrophy, not necessarily like powerlifting specific focus. But I would say even in 2017 when I started the online coaching, it was still very like broad. But what I just simply found over time as I got more into powerlifting, especially like in 2018, as I got more into it from the sub, started like diving deep into researching it, I saw my YouTube channel start to shift more from just general strength fitness into powerlifting. So I'm putting more content out over it. I'm learning more about it. I'm diving into more information. The coach that I had at the time was, like mentoring me and teaching me more stuff as well. And I think it kind of just slowly happened. Like to this day, I still have like a handful of clients that is just for like, general strength training and weight loss. But I think it sort of just naturally happened. Like as I got more into powerlifting and my channel got more shifted into it, I just started getting more clients who were interested in powerlifting. A lot of my clients who were general strength wanted to start powerlifting. So it kind of just started happening that way over time from 2018 onward. It kind of just naturally shifted to that. And now that's
all right. So we'll just pick up where we were. So one thing you mentioned there was obviously the thing that kind of made you fall in love with your job more was seeing that confidence boost in your clients as you were kind of training them. And I'm guessing a lot of that was in person as well at that time. And then obviously you then transitioned more to online. And I actually started as an in-person personal trainer as well. And that's something that made me fall in love with it, especially the strength side rather than focusing on the weight loss and the look side. Like seeing people chase numbers on the bar a little bit more and feel so good when they then hit them, it is an addictive feeling. Yeah. And one thing I want to talk to you about that you are definitely known for is you have a lot of clients. I'm assuming it is just a case of you love your job so much that you can find ways to balance this many clients. Am I right in thinking you have roughly 100 clients?
Yeah. So pretty much for full powerlifting clients. So that's, the coaching, the technique, the check-ins, they get nutrition on top of that as well. I work with anywhere between 80 and 85 clients at a time. And then for nutrition only clients, I work anywhere between 20 and 25 at a time. So I'm anywhere between 100 and 110 clients at a time. Yes. That was never the original intent or the goal. I built up to this very steadily over years. My goal basically was, so pretty much when I first got to 30 clients, which I think I got to that around like 2018, halfway through 2019, I was at 30 full clients and maybe like 3 or 4 nutrition only clients. But basically I held that until about 2020. And my goal was I was pretty much looking at like, okay, this is how much I'm making to provide for myself. I knew that I wanted to marry my back then girlfriend, now wife, and want to be able to provide, a family, stuff like that. And I wanted, basically my thing was I wanted to put us in a situation where, if she found something that she really loves or enjoys doing, or she wants to use her degree to work, she could do that. But then at the same time, if she decided, hey, if we have a family, I just want to stay home with the kids, I wanted to be able to provide that opportunity for her. So I kind of just looked like, okay, how many clients am I working with? What am I charging? What's reasonable? And for me, the goal was, okay, as you expand your roster, make sure you're at a point where the quality of service isn't dropping, but it's also not at the cost of your personal life. So I just expanded it very steadily. So I'll briefly take you through kind of how I went about it. So in 2020, I was like, okay, I've been at 30 clients for a couple of years now. I know I'm good. Like I have so much free time. I didn't have a daughter yet. So I was like, I can manage this easily. I was like, okay, let's try to expand. Let's do a big expansion and smaller expansions with each year. So I'm like, let's try to get to 50. And then of course, 2020 happened, right? But funnily enough, this is kind of what gave me a lot of confidence because even though 2020 happened, I didn't lose any clientele during that time. Even if people had to stop or take a break, they're like, hey man, if you can give me like a workout to do at home, I'll still keep paying you. And thankfully my background is actually in working out at home, like calisthenics and stuff like that. Like I did that from age 11 to 17 before I ever touched a barbell. So I was able to do that, but I was able to expand to 50 clients in 2020. I took on 10 the first half of the year and I took on another 10 the second half of the year. Then from there, what I would do was I would expand by 10 each year, where I would take on 5 the first half and 5 the second half. So in 2021, I was like, okay, I can handle 50 just fine. Let's see how 60 goes. So I would take on 5 the first half of the year. I'm at 55. Okay, how does this feel? I'm still good to go. Okay, take on another 5 the second half of the year. Good to go. Then in 2022, I plan to expand to 70. So I took on 5 and I did, but that's also the year my daughter was born. So at that point, the first few months of that, I was like, this is going to be it. This is definitely going to be the cap. There's no way I can handle more than this. But, a lot of that is because it's, the newborn stage and you're not sleeping and, you're doing a lot of stuff like that, trying to keep yourself sane, trying to keep my wife sane, everything like that. But once we got through that phase and we really caught our groove, like as parents, and started just being more scheduled with stuff, I was like, I still have time in I don't feel like I'm going to kill myself if I take on a few more. I'm still okay. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's maybe try to expand let's see how expanding to 80 goes in 2023. And I did that. And when I got to that point, that's when I realized, like, okay, I could probably take on like 5 more. I could probably take on 5 more and be good. And if I go beyond that, it's not even that the quality of work will suck, because one thing I've learned of these are doing this is that I'm the type of person where my mentality towards this, and I truly think I talk about this on every podcast because I'm very passionate about it, and I wish every coach had this mentality. My mentality towards the coaching is so much, this is my job. This is a full-time job. This is the same thing as having a 9 to 5 where, hey, if you mess up, you get fired. So for me, I'm at a point where I just know, and I've gone through some crazy situations while coaching where I've had probably what most of my clients consider very valid excuses to maybe be late on a block, not respond within 24 hours. I've had the chances, and I've never done it because in my mind, I'm like, in a normal 9 to 5, most of your bosses do not care what comes up. It's like it has to be a crazy emergency situation. Even then, they might not care. So
Your mic's just gone quiet again.
let me see. 1 second.
There we go. There we go.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. But basically for me, because I have that mentality, and then beyond that, on a personal level, it's like I'm a powerlifter myself. I have a coach. I know how much it means to take your money that it could be going to anything else, give it to somebody. And I trust my coach with my goals, my dreams, my finances. That's very serious. So I'm at a point now where I know the issue is never going to be, if you take on more clients, the quality of service will go down, because I've systematically structured and organized things in such a way to where I know every client's getting what they need. I've never, by the grace of God, never once had a client complain about anything as far as communication or anything like that. But where the issues can start to leak in is my personal life. And once again, because of my personality, I'm not going to let my wife feel like she's lacking. I'm not going to let my daughter feel like she's lacking. So that means the one that ends up suffering will be me, like where I need those personal times to just chill or be. You get to a point where like you feel like you're pouring from an empty glass, as well as the fact of the quality just won't be where it's at. So I start to feel like, okay, I'm starting to approach that. So I could probably take on 5 more. And that's where I realized, okay, my minimum threshold as far as like the amount of clients I'm working with at any given time for full powerlifting coaching is 80. But my full cap would be 85. I don't have to always be at that. That's if like someone comes along and I'm like, wow, I really want to work with this person. So that's how I kind of discovered my cap. So it's been that since 2024, I think is when that cap's been. And then with nutrition only, it's just nowhere near as difficult overall, especially if your clients are doing what they're supposed to do. So I just kept the range, 2025 as far as that. But I say all that to say, yeah, I built up to it very slowly over time. And my goal wasn't ever to hit a certain number. My goal was to see, okay, where is my tolerance for where I can balance work and personal life? And I think that's how everybody should do it. Like, that's why I tell people, if I had just taken on 30 clients randomly in a year, that would not have gone down, right? You have to have a base structure of what you can handle. Add to it very steadily, be very selective, know your personality type. That's actually funny enough, my last Powerlifting Now video I put out was about how to not burn out as a coach. And part of that is know your personality type. I think there's a lot of coaches where they actually could probably work with a few more clients than what they do if they know their personality type. Like, I'm kind of known for being like, wow, Marcellus has like such a wide variety of personalities that he works with. But if you look at me just outside of my coaching, that's how my friend circle is as well. I've always been that way. I've never been someone where I've had like a specific clique, if you will. It's like, oh, these are my workout friends. These are my friends I talk to about politics. These are my friends I talk to about theology. These are my friends I talk to about anime. Like, I've always been that way. So I'm good at working with a variety of people. But I think there's some people where it's like, hey, listen, you work well with this type of person. Just work with that type of person. That does not make you a bad coach. I think what makes you a bad coach is biting off more than what you can chew, right? So that's how many people I work with. That's how I built up to it steadily. That's definitely where it's staying. I'm definitely not taking on any more. Because what I did this past year was because funny enough, up until this past year, even though everything was very structured, my response was always just, hey, I'll respond in 24 hours. But now I have structured office hours of when people can actually send me stuff. Because the way my brain works is weird. It's like, even though I know, like, if someone sends me something at like 10 p.m., I know I have until 10 p.m. the next day to get to it. But if I see it in my inbox, I'm like, I need to get back to this, because that's just how I've developed myself over time. So now I have structured office hours of when clients can send videos, and I'll still respond during those hours or within 24 hours during those hours. And that's helped a lot with just work-life balance, because I wake up in the morning and I know, hey, I don't start work officially till this time. And once it gets to a certain time at the end of the day, okay, cool, work is done. I can focus on myself, my family, and that's helped a lot. So yeah, that's how I kind of balance it out. Haven't messed up yet. We'll see how it goes.
I think that's really interesting. And I like how much obviously detail and stuff you went into. I like that at the end there as well, you said you scaled so slowly and gradually that you knew your family life, your personal life wasn't going to suffer. And that is something that I think a lot of coaches do struggle with, because I think, especially maybe like if a coach, like in this country, it's quite common for coaches to maybe coach some friends at uni, fall in love with the process of coaching people, and then they want that to be their full-time job. So it's like, okay, well, let's rush to take on as many people as we can to make it our full-time job. But then you either end up communicating all hours of the day, and it ends up not even being a job, like it becomes your life, which then I think can impact your level of service, but also burnout and things like that. And if you're training as well, you then probably don't want to train because you're constantly powerlifting, literally from the minute you wake up, the minute you go to sleep. And I really like the way you spoke about obviously how you are good at working with different personality types, because that's something I've actually had quite a few calls with people recently, like through talking on podcasts, also like inquiry calls and stuff, where people have found that the coaches just don't match with them on a personality level. Like, let's say lifters need a bit more reassurance, are struggling to find that from their coach. And some people just don't maybe have that level of like empathy or able to put themselves in that situation, which doesn't make you a bad coach. It just means that maybe you need, like you said, work with a certain type of person. So I think, I mean, you covered so much in that answer, but I think that was really important stuff for newer coaches, but also experienced coaches to hear, because I think the scaling side of it, especially, like hearing that you have over 100 clients feels ridiculous. I remember when I first ever heard that about you, I was like, if I ever get to speak to you about this, I have to ask. But now you've explained it, it does make sense. I can imagine the period when you had your daughter was tough.
Very, very, very. And it was funny too, because I had clients who straight up, like, I think that was something that made me very proud, was during that time period, my clients were having conversations among themselves, actually, that they eventually started talking about, but they were like, yo, is Marcellus still getting back to you within 24 hours? And I was like, yeah. It's like, are you still getting your bloods? Like, yeah. It's like, man, that's crazy. Like I just thought maybe this would be where he finally, not that they were expecting me or wanting me to fail, but they were just very appreciative of it. Right. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, your background is also in personal training. And I do think that's part of it. I think part of it is personality type. Like you said, some people are just naturally more empathetic. Doesn't make you a good or bad person if you are more or less just how you're wired. But I think in personal training, you don't know what type of personality you're going to get coming in. So you kind of develop this ability to adjust to people. But let's say you come from a background where like you have more like you're like a football coach type of personality. You're going to want to work with people where they're on top of everything. They're here to work hard. They want to be the best. And that's okay. I think there's just certain coaches where when you realize that, you will thrive, because you will become known as somebody like, oh yeah, this guy does really well with the people he works with, because he doesn't take on people that he wouldn't work well with. You know what I mean? So it's huge. And I always, reference and tell people this as well. I am not saying that anyone's goal should be to work with 100 clients. I don't believe most people will be able to manage that. You can have the best of intentions and have the best system. Once again, I worked 4 jobs my junior, senior in college. I've kind of always had a high work capacity and a high tolerance for people in general. I think that's just something encoded in me, and I've been able to use it and take advantage of it. But once again, that doesn't mean that the quality of your coaching is not based on how many people you work with. It's based on the quality of service you provide. Like Steve DeNovi, PR Performance, right? Also on our powerlifting now. He works with, I think, only like anywhere between 20 to 30 people at a time, and he is still known as one of the best coaches in the game, because he knows that's his limit. He knows that's what he does well with, and he thrives with it. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think what you said there as well about, obviously, like once you had your daughter, like your clients were obviously like checking in with each other to see if you were getting those replies in. And I think by that point, judging by obviously the content that you put out and how you speak about being a coach, but also I follow a lot of your clients, because obviously you have such a large client base, and the way they speak of you, when you get to that certain point after working with people for an X amount of time, like they would give you that slack if you needed it as well, because they know it's, let's say, not a rough period. You'd had a daughter. I'm hoping it was a good period, but obviously a rough period in time in terms of time management, sleep, things like that. They have that leeway with you, but obviously because of who you are, your personality type, you kept up with that workload.
Exactly, and I think the key is, if something does need to change, just let your clients know that. Like, and that's what happened when I incorporated the office hours last year. I didn't just do it and then just stop responding in the usual time. I sent an email to all my clients, hey guys, so here's what's going to start changing. Here's my reasons why. My daughter's getting older. I'm having, because it became a thing where even though my work-life balance was good, basically what it was for me was, I'll never forget this day, because it was the day where it's going to sound so crazy, but I kid you not, if I didn't do this, I might have quit coaching, like legit. So it was like 4th of July. We were at the lake with friends and family, stuff like that. I had competed. It was around that time, but I competed the day before. So I competed the first half of the day. And then when I was done competing, I responded to about like half the messages for that day. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to save the remaining messages for the next day within the 24 hours. Well, then we go to the lake, right? So we're sitting there, we're having fun, we're having a good time. And even though I'm present, I seem fully present, in the back of my mind, all I'm thinking is, okay, I still have this many messages I got to get back to. So I'm not fully enjoying it. And then I had to step away for about a couple of hours, just go sit in the car to catch up on the specialists within the 24 hours. So I did it. I got it done. But in that moment, I'm like, it's Sunday. I'm at the lake with my friends and family, and I just spent 2 hours of it in the car catching up on messages. And granted, I probably could have gone through it faster than 2 hours. But once again, I'm not just liking the videos. Like, I'm actually watching everything. I'm actually giving feedback. I'm doing what I'm paid to do. And in doing that, I'm like, I've been doing this for years. And I'm like, and I don't have off days. Like, I take like a vacation week, and now I take like 4 vacation weeks out of the year ever since my daughter was born. But I'm like, I don't have off days. I'm constantly like, talking and stuff like that. So then on the way back from the lake, I was talking to my wife. And as I'm talking to her, she's scrolling through her phone trying to find something. And she just pulls up a picture and she shows me. I'm like, what is this? She's like, this is you at 3 a.m, putting our daughter to sleep and also responding to a client at the same time. I was like, yeah, let me let me clean this up. So I incorporated the office hours, but I sent a massive email. I let all my clients know, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's why. And when I tell you not a single one of them complained, I got responses like individuals supposed to be like, bro, it's about time, or dude, yes, you need to do this, take care of yourself. And it really has been great because as good as the quality of service was, it only elevated more because I have that much more energy when I'm responding. I'm that much more intentional. I'm that much more enthusiastic. I'm that much more observant of the smallest little things because I'm just, when it's time to work, when I'm in those office hours, it is full coach mode. But then when the office hours in, I get to be a dad, I get to be a lifter, I get to be a husband. And it's been really, really big. And, a lot of people ask me like, oh, so you think everyone should have office hours from the start? I'm like, when you first start, you're working with 5 clients, you're single, you have the time to kind of operate it a little bit more free flow. But if you do plan to make this a full-time gig, I do believe you need a structure to build upon that. It's better to already have a structure in place and build upon it versus having to incorporate that structure later.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And actually, some of my favorite content from powerlifting now has been when you've all been talking through your coaching services and how you structure things. Just your dog walking in the background.
Yeah.
How you structure things and your individual businesses, because obviously all of you are your own separate coaches. So it's quite nice to just hear how different people do things. And something that I've had conversations with friends and stuff about recently as well, like in the coaching business, is things like annual leave. Because a lot of coaches, especially in their first few years when they're still trying to make a name for themselves, don't actually take annual leave. And I know, like, I've had clients message me about, like, you're not taking enough annual leave. I think last year I took 2 weeks maybe, and that was the first time I've ever done it. And I was like, I always felt guilty when I sent an email, like, but similar to what you said, of it was always going to be a positive response from them because they want you to obviously have that break and then you're more fresh when you come back. And yeah, I think something that's not spoken about enough is coaches taking annual leave, because it is, like you say, still a job. And I think your clients will respect their coaches more if they treat it more like a job. They have that structure, even just with office hours as well.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I mean, for me, like I said, I started the online coaching in 2017. I didn't start taking any type of breaks until 2019. And that was because I got married. So I pretty much only did that. I did that for the sake of my wife, not even myself. But I was like, okay, I'll take 2 weeks off out of the year. And then once my daughter was born, okay, now I'll take 4 weeks off. And now I have those 4 weeks structured quarterly. And it's just, even if you aren't married, if you don't have a kid, it's so important. I'm not going to tell you when you have to take 4 weeks off. But if you think about it, like a month out of the year, when you're constantly going is really not that bad. But I definitely think 2 weeks minimum. Like, I tell all my clients who are coaches, like, that have any type of full-time roster, or whether it's 15, 20 clients, whatever, I'm like, take 2 weeks off out of the year. I promise it'll be good for you. It'll feel weird at first. You'll feel guilty at first, but then you'll love it. You'll come back on fire, ready to go. Your clients, if they're not psychopaths, will absolutely understand, because it's like, that's the thing. Think about it. In no other field do you not have some type of leave. Do you not have some type of break? Do you not have some type of off button, right? Like imagine if you're working 9 to 5 in accounting or finance or whatever, and when you get off, people are just still emailing you, but like you would go crazy. And I think powerlifting, the nature of it, because it's so personal, it's this thing where it becomes difficult for people to want to pull back, but it is still a job. It's a job that involves people. You should take it very seriously. It's about relationships, connections, but it is still a job. It is still work. Like, I'm sure, we all heard the saying, like, oh, if you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. That's bullshit. We know that's not true. Like, if you find something you love, you're going to work 10 times harder because you love it. But that's why it's important to be able to step back, take a breather, especially, and you brought this up before, which is such a good point, especially if you're a powerlifter yourself. Like, because you'll get to the point where you don't even want to go train because it's like I don't want to think about powerlifting. I want to think about lifting. So it's very important. Like for me, I never personally dealt with like not wanting to train because I just really love it. But I have had moments of being like, man, I really don't want to respond to these guys when I just want to lift my weights, right? Of course you do. But I, since having more of that structure, I don't really have that issue because like, hey, this is my time, this is their time, and it makes it easy.
That leads on nicely actually to what I was going to ask you next, which was how you do find balancing, obviously, family life, work life, and training as well, because you're still progressing as a lifter. Like you are like a decent level lifter. Like, I mean, I'm looking at your open powerlifting, it's all USAPL, so I don't really over my head. But no, you are a competitive lifter and you're still progressing. You recently went up a weight class. How do you balance coaching, family life, and powerlifting?
Yeah, I think, so the first thing, I think the coaching part, we've kind of gone over. It's like I have a structure, I have a system, like, and that system goes beyond just office hours. I'm talking, if you were to name any of my clients by name and be like, hey, what week of the block are they on? How long have you been working with them? I could pull my notes up right now and tell you instantly. Like having that type of organization is important. So that way you don't drop the ball. It keeps things very low stress. How many clients you have, like which package they're under, like when they're competing. Like don't try to be this person who like, I have a really good memory. Like there's certain times where clients bring things up to me like, oh yeah, from such and such a few months ago. I'm like, man, how do you remember that? But I still have mostly everything written down. So as far as the coaching, it's just having a structure and once again, treating it like a job. Like if you work a 9 to 5 and your job, once again, is finance or whatever you do in the office, your boss doesn't just say, hey, here's all these files, good luck. They give you some type of system for organizing things, right? So I'd say that's the big thing is treat it like a job, which means be efficient, have a system, have time when you're not doing it, right? As far as the powerlifting, for myself as a lifter, get a coach. Like people ask me all the time, man, you're so knowledgeable, you're this and that. Why don't you just coach yourself? I'm like, because I do not want to have to think even more about laying out my programming and stuff like that. Like I love my coach, Brad Cooleyard. I've had him been with him since 2019. And he's the perfect coach for me because we can be collaborative as needed. Like he knows I'm a coach. He takes my feedback. If I throw out ideas, it's cool. But what I love is that he knows that, hey man, I just want to be the lifter. I trust you. Here's the feedback. Do with it what you will. So, because it's so much easier because when I go in, I know, hey, here's what I have for the day. This is what I'm doing. I'm not going to second guess what I have to do because this is what my coach wrote out. And the fact that my coach is also a family member, my coach also has kids and is also married. So he knows like the balance and stuff like that. And then I'm also very systematic with when I train. Like each week, I kind of look at all the days I have for the week and I decide in advance, here's what I'm training based upon what I have to do for the week. So that way it's never a thing of like, oh man, I'm training super late in the day because I had to get through all this work. It's like, nope, I already planned for when I'm training. Yeah, some days it might be earlier, some days it might be midday, some days it might be later based upon what makes the most sense. So that's huge. And the fact is I don't let myself get passive. And this isn't a dig because I mean, there's lots of coaches out there who don't necessarily train or train very hard anymore. And they're still great coaches. But for me, it's like, I look at it as the 2 feet into each other. When I'm helping my clients get better and I'm seeing them push, it makes me want to get after it. And at the same time, me getting after it and me pushing, I know for a fact my clients have a greater respect for me because they know, man, Marcellus isn't asking me to do anything that he's not willing to do himself. And for a lot of my clients, they're like, man, he's got kids, he's got a wife, he's got a mortgage, and he's still out here doing this. You know what I mean? So like it's motivating in that way too. And I think the thing is, I think simply put, I still enjoy it. I love it. I got into powerlifting to powerlift in the first place, not the coach. So because I still enjoy it, I think it's easy to still be very intentional and push myself. And then as far as the family life, this is the biggest thing because I'm very big on nothing ever comes before that. Like I told my wife, if it ever got to a point where I felt like the coaching, the only way I could sustain it would be to impede on family life, I will drop all my clients, send them to different coaches, and I will go work a 9 to 5 because nothing comes before her, nothing comes before my daughter. So once again, the office hours were huge with that. Like when I'm with my family, like if I'm doing something with my daughter, if I'm playing with my daughter, that is what I'm doing in that moment. If I'm, on a date with my wife, that is what I'm doing. I'm not responding to clients, stuff like that, which admittedly early on in our relationship was a problem. Like it wasn't that I had to kind of work out and balance, but now it's like, like tomorrow's not promised. Each day is precious. I do not want the last time that I'm hanging out with my wife to have been a thing where I was on my phone half the time responding to clients. It's not that serious. I have 24 hours to get back to my have office hours, right? So it's just being present with what I'm doing. I think that's the real key. When it's office hours and I'm coaching, be present with the coaching. When I'm in the gym, I'm a lifter. Be present with the lifting. When I'm with my family, be present with my family, and make sure that out of all those things, my family's getting most of the time. Meaning, hey, if my wife and daughter want to go to the zoo and it's middle of my office hours, cool. I can respond to clients on my phone. Let's go to the office hours, right? If I have to step away to do an official check-in, I can do that. But the family always comes first. And I think that's the thing. It's like anything else in life, right? Like if we think about it, even outside of coaching, most people have multiple things they do in life, but you have a priority of what matters to you, right? So I really try to emphasize that. And then a big thing too is still making sure that I have my personal time, like my downtime, even if it's like an hour out of the day where I'm just by myself, reading something, watching that I enjoy, just time for me to recharge. So that way I can be the best husband I can be, the best dad I can be, the best coach I can be, the best lifter I can be. That's very, very important, especially for my personality type, because I'm the type of person where I can be running below E and you can't tell. And I can't tell because I'm still good until I kind of slow down for a second and realize, oh, wow, I'm not good. You know what I mean? So I've learned to have those breaks, have those vacay weeks, have those times alone so it doesn't get to that point. Because it can be hard to kind of bounce back from that and pull yourself out of it. So that's what I think the big balance is just what's the priority? And for me, it's going to be my family first, and then my coaching, since I was how I provide for my family, and then my lifting. But that's not to say that I don't care about my own lifting just as much as I do my coaching. It's just I know at the end of the day, if something comes up, like an emergency while I'm lifting and my client needs me, hey, I'm going to get to that. And then I'll still come back and put the full effort into my training. So I think that's the key. It's just keeping the main thing, keeping your priorities in check. And I will never, ever not stop, singing her praises. But my wife is such a huge part of it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, craftsmanship, like team craftsmanship would not be a thing without her, because while I'm taking care of all you guys, she's the one that's taking care of me. Like I don't have to worry about when I'm working throughout the day, like, oh, what do I need to eat? How do I get this into my macros? She's got that covered. I have very, very good, delicious dinners. Anyone that's on my Instagram stories, they see the meals I be eating. Like my wife cooks very, very well. Make sure everything's within my macros. If I've been working throughout the day, she'll be like, hey, have you eaten today? I'm like, oh, no, I've been working. She'll bring me something home to eat. She's the one that supports me when I'm going through my own frustrations with my lifting. And then of course, it's a partnership as far as raising our daughter and stuff like that. Like none of it works without her. And that was even before I got deep, even back in college when I was working the multiple jobs and stuff like that, her hitting me up. Hey, have you eaten today? No, come over. I'm going to make you something to eat, stuff like that. So, my wife, Amber, I thank God for her. I'm very blessed for her because I would not be doing what I'm doing at the level I'm doing it without her.
Yeah, I think that was a really amazing answer. Obviously, firstly, your wife, very lucky that you found someone that's supportive and helpful. And it shows the importance of having a support system, even if you're single or whatever, just having even just friends to lean on and things like that. Like having some kind of support system, I think is really important for anyone in any field that works a lot, tries to fit in powerlifting and training too. And I also like that you mentioned with your priorities as well, finding some downtime for yourself. I am someone that loves to take on way too much. Like I took on this podcast when I was still balancing a full-time job and basically full-time coaching, thinking that would not be too much time. It's fine. And then I was literally working at my desk until 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, something's got to give here, which then forced me to obviously leap more into the coaching side. But making time for myself is something that I've had to learn to really prioritize, because I'm also an athlete. I also want to be competitive, and I was still making progress, but I was noticing slowly feeling more and more, not even just burnt out, like my body was hurting more because I wasn't actually relaxing. I wasn't taking that time for myself. And you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And I think I'm similar to where you said no one can tell when you're nearly empty, because you'll just keep going and going and going until all of a sudden you do stop, and then it's like, oh no, like I have taken this too far. And again, being aware of your personality type, I think, is massive in terms of helping your success in whatever field you go into, including just powerlifting as a whole as an athlete. So I really like that answer. I had a question for you as well about your lifters. So you mentioned earlier that you coach a range of lifters from, I don't like saying the term lower level, but I think if I say regional, I think regional in America means different to regional in the UK. Like regional here is like the lower level.
Local, regional, national, international.
Yeah. So let's say local level lifters all the way through to international lifters. Okay. Is there a personality trait that you notice in your higher level international lifters versus your local level lifters?
You know, after doing this for the amount of time and doing it, because I was going through and counting the day, I think in total, over the years, I've worked with over like 300 different individuals. I can honestly say, because, you know, a lot of people have the idea of like, oh, the people at the top, they're locked into A, B, and C, or they have this personality type. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the people at the top of any sport is due to genetics. That's just the reality of it. I always tell people like your genetics like determine like your cap, and how hard you work and your personality type determines how high you get to your cap, right? Because the fact is, no, I have some local level lifters where like they track everything perfectly with their macros. They maximize their sleep. They work hard. They push their accessories actually hard to the appropriate RPE. They want to be the best they can be. And their work ethic is just like through the roof, right? And they get hyped for every small PR they hit. They love it. And I have other local level lifters where I guess the best way you can put it, you can tell they're local level lifters, right? Maybe they don't take things quite to that degree of seriously. They're having to make progress at whatever pace it comes. It's fun. They just enjoy it. It's for fun. And that's totally fine. And with a lot of my higher level lifters, there definitely is, for most high levels, like a certain drive. I think it just has to be. It's kind of hard to be passive and be at the top of anything. So there's a certain level of drive. But among my higher level lifters, there's still different personality types. Like some people are more, you know, very serious and rigid with things. Other people, they take their training seriously, but they're a little bit more lax with like the tracking and stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say so. As far as like, I think the personality spectrum kind of goes regardless of experience level. But what I will say is, for a lot of my lifters that are at that very high level, I think there's a certain amount of enjoyment that comes that they know I can only get this level of enjoyment at this level of the sport, and thus that's what keeps me going. For some of them, it's this idea of what they enjoy is, I like beating my previous self. Well, my previous self was already at the top, so I have to stay at the top to be my previous self. For others, it's like, I like beating others. Like, I like being competitive. This is a sport. I want to be better than other people. And then for some, I think it's like it's more a matter of it's like something where it's like, hey, if I'm not being the best I can be at something, and it's not worth doing, and I'm already at this level, so if I drop below this level, then it means it's not worth doing, right? So I think there's always that, like, just that drive. They each have like whatever that it factor is for them, where it's like, this is why I have to do this. This is why I have to be at this spot, whether it's to prove something to myself, prove something to others, or whether it's just because the pure enjoyment of it. Like I think some of my clients, it's this thing where it's like the idea of like being on the Sheffield stage, right? And being in front of 2,000 people that love what they're doing, and just that energy, it excites them, right? So I think that's definitely part of it. But even then, like if you keep all that personality, you keep that drive intact, right? But if I suddenly change your squat leverages and you lose 200 pounds on your squat, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So I do think ultimately the people that are at the top, there is that genetic component to it above all else. But there is still like that certain drive that I think it's a drive that you have to even see if you can even get to the top level. I think some of my lifters who maybe genetically they do have the potential for that, but if they don't have that drive, they're never even gonna realize it. So that would be the one thing I'd say. It's like, it's a certain thing that drives you to be like, I gotta push myself to see how far I can really get. I think it's more so that than necessarily like the personality type. Because even my lifters across, I mean, Ashton is very different than Petrie. Petrie is very different than Bob. But they all have that drive despite the difference in personalities.
Yeah, I really like that answer. I also like that you briefly mentioned Sheffield there, because I did just want to ask you, so you've just coached at your first Sheffield. Have you been to Sheffield before? Was that the first time you'd also been in person?
That was my first time. Yeah, that was my first time going.
I just wanted to ask you what the experience was like. Obviously, Ashton went injured, so he maybe didn't perform quite as well as he wanted to. I'll admit, on the preview show we filmed, I did still want him to come in third.
Yeah.
I was like, if anyone can pull through, was it a pec tear? It'll be him.
Yeah.
But I mean, he still had a great day, hit the squat record. But I just wanted to ask you what the actual experience was like as a coach and just in general.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, as far as like just Ashton period, us just being there was huge, because it's like, and I kept telling him, like, bro, you tore your pec 2 months ago, like 8 weeks ago, man, like, and you're still here doing your thing. And, you know, this is the part that does sting. And I think SB might even have footage of it. I don't know if they'll actually release it or not, but like the day before, like, and I'm saying they have footage of it to know that I'm not just talking out of my butt. This is legit. But the day before, or a couple of days before, me and Ash were game planning, we're talking, and I laid out where I thought our main competition where they would all land. And when I tell you I nailed it and I was so proud of that, like Joe landed within like 5 kg of where I thought he'd be. I think he hit like 5 kg less than where I thought he'd be. Austin actually totaled like exactly around what I said he would. I said that whoever wins the 83s would hit 870. Russ hit 870.5. And I said the 93s are going to land between 915, 920, probably close to 915. One hit 915, one hit 917 and a half. So based upon that, we had our game plan of what we would have to hit to try to land in third. And if we could, if we could have benched what we wanted to, and then I had to take it with deadlift, we could have been there. So like that does sting a little bit. But honestly, I'm the type of person where if a day doesn't go the way we want, even if I did everything I could in my power as a coach, I'm always analyzing what could I have done better? What could I have done better? I didn't do that this time. I really didn't, because I was very happy with every call made. I was very proud of Ash and everything that he did. And it's just the fact of, once again, due to the circumstances, where we landed makes sense, right? But as far as the experience, and this is why I'm not being over, like, it was amazing. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Like this past year going to Worlds, that was the first time I like went to Worlds in person, stuff like that. And seeing my clients, on the world stage was already like huge. And meeting a bunch of international lifters, international coaches, people where like you follow them, they follow you, or maybe you've never even heard of them, but they want to talk to you. Stuff was already really cool. This was that times 10, because it's like, I can talk about this all day, but for multiple reasons. So as a lifter, like just as someone who loves powerlifting, when you're in that back room and you're around the other, like the best coaches in the world, the best lifters in the world, literally like all world champions are close to it, right? It's very humbling. It's like, man, I'm in a room with all these great, amazing people, but they all love what we do. We all have lives. We a lot of them have jobs outside of this. Like, they're all friendly. We're talking. We're just bonding. In the hotel lobby, we're just chilling, talking, exchanging ideas, talking about the drastic differences in culture and stuff like that. It's just really, really cool. Like, I remember at one point, it's like in the span of an hour, I'm talking to Matt Gary, we're talking about like Christianity and our faith and stuff like that, and thanking God for where we're at. Then I'm talking to Waskar about like being fathers while powerlifting. Then I'm talking to Gustav and Ashton about like military history and different wars and stuff like that. It was a cool moment, right? So that part was cool, the build up to it. But then Sheffield itself was electric. Like, and shout out to Matt Gary, because I remember he told me, he's like, hey, Marcellus, I know how you get when you're handling. I get very like locked in, focused, kind of block everything else out of my lifter. He said, but when you walk out there for Ash's first squat, he said, if you can't, just look at the crowd, like just for a few seconds. I did that, and it was insane. Like just everything. And then I always use Ash's third squat is the main example I'll use for like how it felt. It's like you're in the back, we're talking to each other. I'm talking to him crazy. I'm getting him in that zone that I know he needs to be in there. He's walking on stage. I'm telling him, like, this is yours. Go take me to get it, right? And then it's like I feel my heart pounding in my chest, but then it's like a wave of energy from the crowd slamming into that. And it feels like your heart's beating outside of your chest. It was so electric. And then Ashton just fighting through it. It was incredible. Like the energy was incredible. And I think what does it more than just like the stage and the setup, it's not just that it's 2,000 people. It's that these are over 2,000 people where they all love powerlifting. Like, these are people like, of course, I'm sure some friends and family, they're even at a national level meet, a lot of people that are there, they're there to support their friend or their family member. They don't even necessarily know what's going on. But here, everyone in the audience, they powerlift, they ref, they coach, whatever it is. And it's just a different level of energy. And then afterwards with the meet and greet, just the amount of love to see my lifter Ashton get the love that I know he truly deserves, because especially after the day, not having the day he wanted, but seeing how many people were just so astonished with that he even showed up, that he benched it all, that he did his thing. It made me really emotional, because I know the amount of work that my clients put into this. Ashton, especially in the sense of the dude just got his PhD. He's active duty military. He's about to be a dad. I know how crap his circumstances are, and he still pushes himself to be the best he can be. So seeing him get that and seeing him smile and really enjoy that and be able to just relax and enjoy that, I love that. That was already awesome. But then it gets extra humbling when it's like you have so many people coming up to you as a coach. You would think I just did Sheffield. Like, I couldn't believe the amount of people who were coming up and wanting to talk to me. I had some people who told me, like, hey, your YouTube channel got me into powerlifting from a country I never even heard of. Like, it was very overwhelming. And, I think some people, they may think at this point I'm used to people coming up to me, stuff like that. And I'm used to it in the sense of like, I don't get like choked up and don't know what to say when it happens, but it's still very humbling. It's like, it's very humbling to know that you can put work into a YouTube video or powerlifting now, or just show your own training, and it does something. It triggers something in somebody else that motivates them or helps them learn something or helps them be better. And really, for me, at the core of everything I do, that's what it's about. I love helping other people. I love helping other people grow and be better. And it's cool to be able to pour out into people, and then they pour back into you. Like, one thing I don't like about it is I hate when people come up and they're like, oh, they talk to you, they shake your hand, they want to get a picture, but then they don't tell you their name. It's like, I want to know your name. I don't care if you think I'm going to forget it. I don't care if I'm going to forget it. I want to know your name because it means so much to me that you're coming up to me, right? To you, maybe like, oh, who cares? Like, he doesn't care about my name. No, I do, because you're pouring into me right now. Like, whether you realize that or not, like, you taking the time to even say, hey, man, what you do means a lot to me. You don't have to do that. You could just take the content and get the benefit. You don't have to take the time to come talk to me, especially when you have these top level lifters you could be talking to. So it really meant a lot to me. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced from a production standpoint, from a hype energy standpoint. It was awesome. And I look forward to hopefully being able to get out there again for sure.
Do you think as well, I guess because you were in USAPL for so long, when you've now come over to the IPF, you've obviously now been introduced. I'm sure at USAPL meets you get it as well, but I'm sure you also see a lot of the same faces at most meets. And then you go to IPF meets, international, especially here in the UK. Like, I think, especially like powerlifting now, since that's come out, like you're like on my Instagram, I'm just scrolling through, like, granted, I just mostly follow powerlifters, but like you will come up in some form, whether you're tagged in a Lifters Reel or whether you're posting your own content or it's a powerlifting now reel or something like that. So I guess coming from USAPL, actually coming overseas where you are then introduced to this whole new group of people, it must be like quite crazy to have that feeling of like, obviously everyone coming up to say hello and what you've done for the sport as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like what was cool about going to Worlds first, and why I'm glad that I got to do that, was you get the reality check of like, oh wow, like people internationally like care about what I do. They look up to what I do, stuff like that. And I was hanging out with like all types of people at Worlds, like, you know, from different nations. But I think I was spending a lot of time with the people from Australia and then GB. I think that's who I spend the most time with. And Jordan's really kind of opened up my eyes to like, well, first of all, Team GB was very, very pleasantly surprised with, I guess, like how me and the team were, like me, Petrie, Bob, Ashton, my client Megan. I guess, you know, like without trying to slander anyone, I guess the way that the US team has been beforehand hasn't always been the most friendly, because we were all hanging out in the lobby, we were going out to eat with them, stuff like that, and they weren't used to it. Like, yeah, typically Americans, you come in, you stay in your room all day, then you go compete, and then you leave. You don't stay for the whole week and support your teammates. And we couldn't believe that. We're like, what? We're meeting people from different countries who love what we do. Why would I not want to talk to you? Why would I not want to pick your brain and hang out with you? So, but it was cool because I'm glad I got to do that and experience that, because then when I was going to Sheffield, like my wife could tell, I was so excited to see them again. It's almost like you get to see friends that you only get to see once to twice a year. So there's that aspect of it. But then, like you said, the other aspect is all the people you've never met who you get to talk to and see. Yeah, it's awesome. Like we lift weights. You know what I mean? Like at the core of what we do, we lift weights. We help people get better at lifting weights. So it's just a really cool experience to, you know, it's community. That's really what I think it comes down to. It's not just a sense of like, oh, you're famous and blah, blah. Like, yeah, there's a cool aspect, but it's more like, man, it's community. We're creating and expressing community. And I love that.
Yeah, I think as well, because of, like, I started around the 2018 time, and I actually had Gavin on the other day, and we were just chatting about the difference in the sport from like 2018, 2019 to now, and that growth. You've been around another, 5 years pretty much on that, 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm assuming the growth from 2015 through to now, to go to different countries and to bond with people over lifting weights in this sport, it is quite a surreal thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never thought it would be what it is. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these people. I think there's a lot of people. It's funny. I think the people who hate on powerlifting the most are powerlifters, where they're like, oh, it'll never be this. It'll never be that. Shift will never be this. I've always been somebody where I'm like, we don't know what it can be, but we should put our best foot forward to try to grow it and make it be what it is. We might disagree on how to make it grow. Like, I'm very big on like, hey, most of the audience of powerlifting are powerlifters. So you're probably going to help the sport grow by getting more people into general fitness and then getting into powerlifting, right? Maybe somebody else thinks, no, we got to treat it like other sports where you got to be able to be a fan of it without doing it. And that's fine. But for me, even with having the positive mentality of, hey, we don't know what this can be, can grow, I still never would have imagined it is what it is now. Like in 2015, when tasking Ed were like, oh, hey, help us start this powerlifting team. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. I never would have thought it'd be this. I never would have thought like, oh, this is what I'm doing for a full-time living. This is the content I'm putting out. These are the people that I'm meeting. But I truly do, I thank God for it. I always give glory to him first for everything, because it's like, I could be doing anything else, and it could be would be way less boring. I mean, way more boring than what I'm doing now. Yeah, my bad. Way more boring. Let me clear. Way more boring. Way less exciting than what I'm doing now. So yeah, it's very surreal. Honestly, I still can't believe it. Like when I think about Sheffield, it's like, man, it doesn't feel like that actually happened. So
no, it's really cool, and it's cool that you got to go obviously with Ashton, who, like, I would class myself as a proper powerlifting nerd. Like, I remember when I first started in my job that I've now cut my hours back on, like it was an office job. And I remember that was when I was then getting back into powerlifting properly, like 21, 22 time. And I just binge listened to all the King of the Lifts, all the powerlifting podcasts I could find to just learn as much as I could. And that like obviously helped me in loads of different ways as well. And I remember, I think I heard Ashton on a couple, and he's always been known in this country, but obviously he hasn't competed in the IPF for a few years now because of the split. So seeing him on the Sheffield platform, obviously the UK lifters all know him anyway, and I think a lot of us are quite big fans of him anyway. Like getting to see him after not competing he was competing at Worlds, that was his first international since juniors. Am I right in thinking that? Getting to see him on that platform was just a really cool moment as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ashton's been in the game for a very long time. Dude's been doing this since he was a teenager. So it's like, it's definitely one of those things where I think it's like it's deserved, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't use that term loosely, because like, no one quote unquote deserves anything, got to earn it. But it's like Ashton has put so much time into this, so many years. He's competed at the highest level across different feds. He's had crazy battles with, Anatoly, with Bob, with Keenan, like beating the best of the best. And it was just like I told him, I remember we were walking there for weigh-ins. I said, man, just know no matter what happens today, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm proud of everything you've done. I'm proud of all the work you put in. Because it's crazy. It's crazy because it's been 5 years. We're working for 5 years, and I just, once again, I know that Ashton could retire any day, and I'd have no complaints. I'd be like, hey man, you put in your work. But he's always still trying to be like, I got more. I can do a little bit better. And after what happened at Sheffield, he's even more on fire for everything. So yeah, I was very happy that he got to experience that.
I was actually going to ask you about that, because I know he's kind of hinted at potentially retiring. Obviously, he's now starting a family, and he's done a lot, right? So it wouldn't be against him to like kind of quit, settle down, whatever he wants to do. But after Sheffield, I saw him posting on his stories, and I was like, is he now more fired up than ever to continue?
Absolutely, yeah. I think for him, once he does World Games in August, he will have done pretty much every high level meet you can do in our sport. But I think our plan is to just, let the pec heal up. So we're not gonna worry about nationals, we're not gonna worry about worlds. We're just gonna build all the way into World Games, similar to what Bob is doing. And then after World Games, then build all the way into nationals for next year, Worlds again, then do the second Sheffield in 2026. Really show what he can do at Sheffield. Then after that, we'll see if he's ready to kind of pull back a little bit. But that's the plan as of right now.
Yeah. I'm going to jump back a little bit, kind of towards the start of your career again. I want to talk about your YouTube channel. So you kind of mentioned it started off as more of like a general fitnessy kind of thing. And obviously it's now become very much powerlifting focused, informative content. I just wanted to ask, firstly, what inspired you to start your YouTube channel in the first place? And then what point did you then obviously transition to more to powerlifting content? And do you give that credit for a lot of your success as a coach in terms of obviously showing people what you know and that side of things?
Yeah, so the seeds of my YouTube channel actually started, I'd say, back in high school, funnily enough. Shout out to my friend Ronald. He's not a powerlifter or anything like that. He still works out here and there, but he was the best man at my wedding. And he was like my first true like best friend, like the whole, like, we have a best friend where it's like you're truly like family, like a brother. Like that's what Ron was to me. And he was one of the first people that I kind of got into working out. This is before I got into personal training, stuff like that. I was just working out, doing my own thing. But I got him and a couple others to start working out with me because it's like, hey man, it's fun. You'll enjoy it. You'll feel really good physically. You'll feel more confident. You won't be scared to talk to women, all that typical type of stuff, right? Which is definitely not true. You'll probably still be terrified, but especially at that age. But anyway, with helping him and once again, just seeing how much he was enjoying it, how much it was changing him, it was making him more confident, stuff like that. That's where I think the seeds of personal training kind of were planted. But then he also was telling me, he's like, man, you should do a YouTube channel. I was like, I don't know about that, because I enjoyed watching videos. He's like, dude, like he's like, anytime I ask you a question about anything, you'd be the most random finish thing. You somehow know it. I really think like you should do something like that. And I was like, okay, maybe one day. And then when I got into college, like I said, specifically my junior and senior year, when I was working at the rec center and I was a personal trainer, it became a thing where I became known as the guy where even when I wasn't a personal trainer, I was just at the desk, right? People would just randomly come up and be like, hey, man, I have a question. Somebody said to ask you. And they would ask me questions and I would just be like, oh, yeah, do this. If you're trying to do this, work on this. If you're trying to do this, blah, blah. I just give them information, right? And it became a thing where like my coworkers were like, man, you should start like a YouTube channel, bro. Like you just sat here and talked to this person for 10 minutes. That could have been a whole YouTube video, blah, blah, blah. And funnily enough, that's also where my name, the Swolefessor, came from. Because a lot of my coworkers started being like, man, Marcellus is like a swole professor or something, man. Like he used to be spitting facts about like the fitness stuff like that. So that's kind of where the name came from too, to a degree. But for me, it's just a thing where once again, I just knew I didn't have the time to start a YouTube channel while I was in college. Once again, taking 12, 15 hours a semester, trying to power lift, trying to maintain my relationship, working 4 jobs. I just didn't have the time. But I did tell myself, you know what? Yeah, after I graduate, like I'll start something. So I graduated in 2016. So at the end of 2016, I started the channel. And for me, the focus was just on like health, fitness, and social well-being. That was the big thing. Like health in the sense of like, hey, here's how you actually get healthier. Here's how you eat for your health, like that. Fitness in the sense of whether it be strength training, calisthenics, cardio, whatever. And then social well-being as far as like, I don't think it does you any good to have a healthy body if you don't have a healthy mind. So some of my videos will just be talking about like, hey, if you're going through this, here's a way you can approach it. Here's a way you can shift your mindset towards things. So that's how it started. And I took it all the time. Yes, if I had to credit, I guess, just one thing that's not like a person, like my wife, something like that, one thing that's really led to me being where I'm at today, it's definitely YouTube, because through being so proactive in it, putting so much content out, that's where the vast majority of my clientele, the base of my clientele came from, was like, oh, I watched a YouTube video, because the YouTube channel allowed me to show, one, that I know what I'm talking about, but two, that I also practice what I preach. Because even when I would do the training vlog videos, it wouldn't just be me showing my training, that's it. I would be explaining, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's why, here's what y'all can take away from it. And then when I first started, I was doing like 3 to 5 videos a week when I first started, because there were so many topics that I wanted to cover. Whether it was topics that I felt people have covered them, but I think they tried to overcomplicate it, or they kind of dumbed it down too much. Because my whole thing with my channel is like, hey, keep it simple, specific, scientific. And that's still kind of my thing today. It's like, keep things simple enough to where people understand what you're saying, right? Make sure you're being specific to what the person needs with whatever you're talking about. And then scientific in the sense of, let's not just make crap up. Let's make sure there's some type of evidence for what we're talking about, right? So kind of trying to balance out like the simplicity of the bros with the science of like the super hyper intellectuals. We're like, okay, what you're saying is correct, but nobody knows what you're talking about. Like they don't have a degree like I do. You don't say arm, same legs. Stop using these anatomical terms that most people don't know. Like it's not necessary, right? So that was kind of the whole basis of it. And it was just doing really, really well. But once again, I think for me, when it kind of shifted more to powerlifting was as I shifted more to powerlifting. Because basically what happened was, like my first few meets I did, I kept getting first. So I kept doing what I was doing. I was like, okay, cool. I'll get my powerlifting program for like 8-10 weeks. Then I'll go back to doing my things. That's working. But in 2017, I did a meet. It was a local meet, but they had a prime time. And I did this meet with Russell. Brandon Petrie was actually there as well. My client Michael C was there, but they weren't clients at the time, right? But he was there. Then my boy Anas, and that was the first meet I did where I didn't win. I got second to Michael C in the juniors, and then I got second to Anas in the open, and I hated that. I was like, oh no, I got to start excuse me, I got to take this seriously, and like I got to lock in basically. So basically, that's when I started looking into coaching. That's when I got a coach, like officially in 2018, and just started taking it more seriously. So because of that, my training vlogs focused more on powerlifting. But with that, I was just learning more. And as I was learning more, that was helping me. I would put that content out there for other people, whether it was like technique stuff, programming stuff, whatever. I just started putting more stuff that was focused on powerlifting. I would still do general strength training and hypertrophy stuff here and there, but I would always have it build into, hey, this can help with powerlifting in this way. So I think the channel kind of just naturally morphed as I did. It wasn't a thing where I sat down and said, okay, now I'm going to focus on powerlifting content. It's just, that's what I was into at the time. So that's what I was putting a lot of my focus in. So it kind of transitioned. It happened due to that. And with that, once again, the same thing that happened with the general strength clientele was happening with powerlifting. I had more powerlifters in my inbox or in my emails, or be like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, or hey, this guy just, did this, or helped this client with this and that. So yeah, and then eventually, like, Michael C., who beat me, ended up becoming a client, right? And that, I think that opened up the door for me to start getting more high-level clients. I think people saw what we did together, and that made them think, okay, well, because when I started working with Michael C., that's when, like, Ashton, Jamar, Petrie, that's when a lot of them started kind of like watching me a little bit more closely. And a lot of them kind of already knew who I was anyway. They kind of saw, like, okay, yeah, Marcellus Williams knows what he's doing. But I think seeing what I could do with someone who was already strong and helping them get stronger, that's when they got really interested. And same thing, Bob is the funniest one, I got to say, in terms of how that went down, just because a few of us were on a group chat and Bob was in it. And I'll never forget Bob telling me, this was a year, like a year before we actually started. He's like, yeah, man, I see you doing your thing. I see you, like, you know your stuff. You're getting it. You realize, like, I'm still doing my own thing right now. I'm still making progress. But just know, the moment I start slowing down, I'm going to come to you. And of course, you get kind of hyped, like, oh, Bob wants to work with me. That's kind of cool. Like this dude could have mad potential. He's not doing the circus stuff anymore. He's being kind of serious. Like, that could be cool. But at the same time, it's like, okay, he said, oh, when I slow down, I'll come to you. That, who knows when that happens? Who knows if he's serious? But I'll never forget, it was like a year later, he failed a squat, almost got it, but he failed a squat, posted it, and then like 10 minutes after that, was in my inbox, all right, man, when do we get started? So, like, I always think that's amazing. Bob is such a, like, I mean what I say and I say what I mean type of dude. It's easy to take it as an exaggeration, but yeah, he was serious. So then we started working together in like that was like the end of 2020 or 2021, but yeah.
It's actually brilliant. I actually wanted to ask you, so something I ask pretty much every coach I have on, if I remember to, is if you've ever had a moment of imposter syndrome or a little bit of like, why are these people trusting me? And I guess you've just mentioned, the name has blanked from my head, your first client that beat you in the comp, or the first higher level client you kind of had.
Michael C.
Yeah. Michael, yeah. So when he first said, I want you to coach me, was there a moment of, oh God, or were you confident enough? Because obviously you said you'd already been, like, you knew your stuff, right? Like, you had that confidence, you were putting the content out there. So there was that level of confidence there. But has there ever been a moment of, why are these people picking me, or an imposter syndrome in any area of your coaching? Yeah,
that's a great question. So when Michael and I first started working together, it was right before Junior Worlds in 2019. So we started working together, collabing on things, and he went to that meeting. He did very, very well. I didn't travel with him, but he killed it. And I had no doubt that he was going to do well, just because it's like, okay, yeah, it's a stronger dude, but the same principles apply, the same methods apply. I know what I'm doing. We'll be fine. But then going into 2019 USAPL Nationals after that, that was the one where it was like, it was him, Austin Perkins, Taylor Atwood, Pug, all that. And we're going into deadlifts. Michael actually looked like he was set to win and dethrone Taylor until he had like the full body cramping and seizing, unfortunately. But what I'll say is, so that 2019, that was my first time going to nationals and competing at nationals. It was also my first time handling at nationals, and it was a prime time session. So I'll never forget, I was totally good, totally fine. But then we actually got there and I got back there. I remember thinking like, yo, like, this is my first time even being at national. Now I'm handling a prime time. So I was like, yo, am I ready for this? Can I do this? Like that type of vibe. And it was a thing too, where there's just certain things where I realized like, man, there's certain things I don't necessarily know about, like chips or doing this, doing that. Like, oh, you can change. Like, I just realized that, man, I've handled a lot at the local level, but there's a lot more you have to account for on game day with these type of things. Even though squats and bench are going well, and the cramp having on deadlifts, there's still a thing where it's like, I guess the best way I can put it was, kind of woke me up, right? Instead of imposter, like, oh, I don't deserve to be here, it woke me up to like, oh, I am here. I need to step it up. I need to be prepared for being here, right? So I think it was kind of like that. I think it was like that brief moment of imposter in the sense of like, yo, like, can I do this? But then after getting through the session and being like, bro, before he fully seized up, we were doing it. Like we on subtotal, we were winning. It's like, it made me think like, yeah, I do deserve to be here. Like I wouldn't be otherwise, right? Like we're here because like, the work I've done helped Michael allow him to get to this point. And despite what happened, look how close we got. And that just got me fired up for like, okay, I got to lock in. I got to get better at everything. Game day handling, programming to keep my clients healthy, make sure a client never has full body cramping again. I need to be on top of like recomping and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was a thing where that meet could have easily had me spiral into imposter syndrome. I could have been like, oh, it didn't go well. And oh, I wasn't on top of this recomping. And like, should I be here? But instead, it kind of like, it was that moment of like slight imposter syndrome to like, nah, we got to lock in and show that I do deserve to be here. I think that's kind of more of what it was for me.
I think that's a really cool way of reframing it as well. Like you said, like you could have almost crumbled under that pressure, but actually no, like I'm here because I've earned it. Now I need to step up and make sure that any errors that did happen at that first one don't happen again, right? And you use that as a learning curve to then progress as a coach, which obviously you have done. So I really like that way of reframing it, actually. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why 2020 was actually interesting, because after 2019, my mindset was, okay, in 2020, we're going to do this and this, and the team's going to do this. We're going to come back and improve ourselves. But then obviously nothing happened in 2020. But it's good. It was a blessing in disguise because that gave me so much time to just refine things. Like, okay, everyone's chilling. Everyone's like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it. Nope. I'm putting out more content than ever. I'm researching more than ever. I'm learning more than ever because I want to come into 2021 strong. And we did. Like 2021 was where we came back. And in that year of nationals, Michael placed top 3. Ashton came back and got his title back and beat Bryce. Jamar was the first 83 to squat 700 on the platform. Like 2021 was hype. Like I think 2021 is when people really started kind of recognizing us as like, oh, team craftsmanship and stuff like that. Then the pro series started, but it's like, I tell Michael this all the time, like, bro, thank you so much for like, because it's easy for the client to be like, oh, thank you, coach, for how far you've got me. But I was like, no, thank you for trusting me, man. Like, thank you for like giving me the opportunity to show what I can do. Because if not for that, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing today at the level I'm doing it. So
yeah, I think that's really important as well. It's as a coach acknowledging how much trust your lifters are putting in you to pick you. As like, there are so many coaches to choose. Like I'm self-coached because I'm a control freak, and the idea of choosing one person to coach me freaks me out so much. So for someone to put that trust in me, in you, in another coach, like that's a big deal. And I think being grateful for that will obviously also only help you because you're going to want to live up to that expectation.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to take it seriously because it's like you said, they could pick anybody else. Like you can say that like, oh, well, they shouldn't pick this person because it's so-and-so, but it's like, but they could, and they chose you. So take that seriously for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And just because you mentioned him, I want to talk to you about your lifting again in a sec, but just going to ask you about Jamar. Is he doing nationals this year?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And how's his training going?
It's going great. Yeah, he doubled the like over 800 like a couple blocks back, and now we're kind of like resetting him and building him into it. Because one thing I've learned with him is like, okay, if even more than other people, like a lot of people, I have them take their heaviest lifts like a block out and then build into the meet. But with him, I've learned to pace it even more so because like it's just so much weight to squat at that weight where it's like, okay, cool, you hit that 800. We don't need to touch that again until the platforms. Now we're just gonna build you into it steadily. So far it's been going really, really well. He's feeling good. He's feeling strong. He's feeling healthy. Definitely looking even better than what he did going into the SBD Raleigh meet. So we'll see how he shows up.
He's a 93 as well now, isn't he?
Yes.
So you've got him and Petrie against each other. How do you deal with that? Obviously having two lifters, and obviously you're going to coach them as best as you can either way, right? But how do you deal with that? Because I'm assuming they're going to be in a pretty close battle.
Yeah. So basically what I look at is kind of just based upon, well, first of all, I look at like, okay, realistically in terms of total, right? It's like, how many lifts does this lifter have to miss for this other lifter to even be close, right? And if it's like, okay, you got to like miss 3-4 lifts, then it's like, okay, I'm not as concerned about it. I'm going to make sure you have the best day you have, make sure you have the best day you have, and if you both have the best day, your placings are whatever they are anyway, right? But whenever it's something that's a little bit more like tightness, like for example, USAPL Nationals, the last one they did where Ashton and Bob were going against each other and was handling both of them. That was one of those things where I just asked them, well, hey, how do y'all want to go about this? Do y'all want me to handle both of you? And because historically with the other dot space meets, that's what I did. I just handled everybody. And they're like, yeah, we're cool. We trust you. And they just know, hey, whoever has the final deadlift has the final word. If you want to play the game, play the change, that's fine. This person's not going to know your game plan. This person's not going to know it. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you what I think you have. But if you want to overrule that because you want to go for something, I'm going to let you do that, right? And that worked pretty well historically overall. But I'm at a point now where the way I plan to pretty much go about it is one of two ways. One, it's like, hey, Do you have someone that you trust to handle you, that you want to handle you, and you want me to handle the other person? If so, I'll do that. But if not, the way I'll go about it is, okay, cool. I'll coach you both through squat. I'll coach you both through deadlift. I mean, I'll through squat and bench. But then for deadlift, I can either, you all can have your own person, or I'm only gonna be with one person. You can be with someone that you trust. So in the case of this, I think what's most likely gonna happen is Becca, Jamar's partner, is probably gonna like be there by side the whole time, and I'll be with both him and Petrie through squat and bench. And then for deadlifts, Jamar will probably be comfortable with just letting Becca do the thing. I'll be with Petrie, and we'll go from there. And we'll just kind of like see how that plays out. But I always do it based upon like, what are my clients comfortable with? What do y'all want? Because it's not about me. It's not about me being there and being like, oh, I gotta be with both of y'all. Like, no, it's like, if y'all look, if you both decide, hey, look, I don't care what the optics look like, I want you to handle me through everything, and you both want that, I'll do that. If it's, hey, I'm more comfortable with this and this, but then for deadlifts is this, or hey, let this person do whatever, give me the game plan, then we'll execute it. It's whatever they choose to do. So that's how I tend to go about it. Thankfully, I've only been in a couple situations where it's people that are like that close anyway. But I think just looking at the numbers and stuff like that, if everything goes the way that it should, I think Peach would have to probably mess up pretty badly anyway for Jamar and Peach to be like super, super close. But it's also nationals, and you never know. And Jamar's going to have a very nice lead just off the squad itself. So that's why I'm like, I'm going to be careful and make sure we have contingency, so that way no one feels like they're getting, played or favoritism or anything like that.
Yeah, no, of course. I really like that answer. So just going back to your training just for a bit, obviously I won't keep you too much longer. We've all been chatting for a while.
No, you're good.
As a lifter yourself, obviously, like we've said, you are a competitive lifter. You're obviously still training hard. You've still got your coach. You're still pushing your training. When you decided to go up weight class, I just noticed you were in the same weight class from when you started until, 2022, 2023?
2023, yeah.
So from 2015 to 2023, you were in the 74s.
Mm-hmm.
How hard was that to maintain, firstly, and what was the decision behind moving up?
So at first it wasn't difficult because I was a light 74. Like I said, coming out of high school, I only weighed like in the 140s, and then going into college, I eventually started weighing like in the 150s and stuff like that. So for a while, I was kind of walking like a little bit under the weight class, and then even when I got to where I was walking around at the weight class, because like I'm a very naturally lean person, and I have to eat like crazy to gain weight in the first place. Like I'm eating 4,200 calories right now, trying to fill out this weight class, right? But even when I was walking around at the weight class, it was still easy because I'm like, okay, hey, just adjust my eating, cut my food off a little bit earlier, and I'll be fine. But as I kept, recomping and packing on muscle, but still being relatively lean, like at one point I was like 10% body fat while still being like, almost near 170. And that's when it started getting a little bit tough for sure. and actually, I think it was Nationals of 2022. I thought that was going to be my last 74 kg meet. And I actually did like a couple of meets. It's a very light 83, just not having to cut. But it basically became a thing where, what was the meet? It was Carolina Primetime. When that was coming around and I was looking at everything, I was like, man, if I can cut back down to like, 74, 75, because I think for USA feels like 75, I can cut down to that again. And if I can hit a 700 kg total, which I missed because I missed one bench at the Nationals the year before, I'm like, if I can hit that total, then it crosses a few milestones for me. One, a 700 kg total at 74 is just like a big milestone number at that weight class. And it's something that I for a long time didn't think I'd even be capable of. Two, it would give me a 500 plus dots. 500 dots is something that I've always like, if I can do that. Like for me, it's like, hey, if I hit a 500 dots, then I can say like, okay, I'm not just an average lifter, or, oh yeah, I coach. Like, no, I'm a lifter. I'm a good lifter. You know what I mean? Like there's like that elite status, and then there's like that level right below them, and there's everybody else. I want to be at that level right below them. That's how I was looking at it, right? And wanted to just prove to myself that like, hey, I am a lifter. I am leading from the front, stuff like that. And then the other thing too for me was, I'm like, if I can do this, then I know I can move up without any regret. I won't have anything I care about doing at that point. So for me, I did it. And it was an interesting cut too, because I was 172 pounds, and then I cut to, I think I weighed like 163, 164, whatever it was. So it was interesting because it was like the best cut that I had done, right? And it was the best recomp I have done, and it was the best performance that I had to date. So it's almost this thing where a lot of people thought after that, oh man, since he got everything nailed, he's going to definitely want to stay and just get more competitive weight class. But here's a big thing for me. Because of how lean I already was, when I do that cut and when I recomp, I feel like death for like 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. I don't just bounce back. Like my hips feel destroyed, my quads feel destroyed. Like it's so hard to just recover and get back into it. And it just gets to a point where I'm like, man, if I'm trying to maximize my strength, I can't do it this lean all the time. Like I need to be able to pack on some more weight and some size. So I'm like, I've milked this for a very long time. I already hit my goals for dots. I hit my goal for the weight class. Now my goal is I just want to be the strongest lifter I can be. I care about my total. I will eventually get back to where I'm hitting like a 500 dots in the weight class, but I just want to get as strong as possible. Like for PLA Nationals, my goal is I want to hit, I want to break, the 1,600 pound total barrier. So that's what my focus is. And I just ask myself, okay, realistically, am I going to do this as a 70? No, I'm not. So, or it's going to take way longer. So that's really what it came down to. It's like, at the end of the day, I got into powerlifting to be as strong as possible. So that's, it was just time basically.
Yeah. And because you are a nutrition coach as well, I don't know if do you know Jane Jones? She works with Strength Guys. She's one of their nutrition coaches.
Yes.
I actually filmed an episode with her yesterday, which will be released the week before this one. And one question I asked her as a nutrition coach as well, because she's recently moved up a weight class, is what advice you would give to lifters that are deciding whether or not they should. We kind of tailored it more towards people like in the UK that maybe just leaving university. So around like the 21, 22-year-old, kind of aging out of juniors. A lot of people, I think, try and hang on to that lower weight class, maybe identify with it quite strongly. Because you are a nutrition coach as well, and obviously you have also made that choice to go up a weight class. I thought I'd ask you the same thing of what advice would you give to someone that was contemplating whether or not it's time to move up?
Yeah, I would say and I understand people like the aspect of staying in a weight class because it makes them more competitive, but you always have to think long-term. It's one thing if you're like a top 5, top 10 lifter and you're biting for placing. I get trying to hold on to that as long as possible. But the way I look at it is there's a few factors, but I guess there's 3 main factors to look at. The first one is, are you still making good progress in training that carries over to the platform? Meaning if you're sitting over the weight class by say like 5 pounds, you're making good progress in training, but you're able to easily do a water cut or gut cut and it carries over the platform. You're still able to do that? Cool. You can probably stay. If you're not able to do that, where it's like, okay, I'm making progress in training, but every time I cut, it just doesn't carry over. I just don't feel as good. I think it's time to move up, because it doesn't matter how good you're doing in training if it's not carrying over to the platform, right? We do this to compete. The second thing that I would say is if you're just not making progress in training, it's like, okay, I can't, I've really capped out what I can do. I've capped out my recovery resources due to my lifestyle. Then it's like, okay, it's time, you're literally not making progress. It's time to gain weight, move up, right? But then the other factor I would look at too would simply be, how much work do you have to put in to make weight? Because it's kind of like, okay, let's say for the sake of argument, okay, I'm making okay progress in training. I put all this work in to make weight and I do well, but it's like, how much work are you putting into that? And how much progress are you making relatively if you didn't do that? Meaning not even just bulking up to the next weight class, but just walking in and not cutting. How much better do you feel? How much more progress do you make? Especially since we're being very specific with the age group we're talking about, right around that junior range, it's like, you're going to keep growing anyway. You're going to keep getting stronger anyway. There's a few rare circumstances, a few like those Sean Noriegas where they've been in the same weight class as they were junior. They've just maximized it. But most people, you're not going to stay in the same weight class. Whatever weight class you started with, as a teenager, junior, you're probably going to grow. You're probably going to get more muscle maturity. So I think it's about focusing on that and simply not really worrying about weight classes. And quite frankly, I tell people, if you're not competing at least the national level, I don't think you should worry about weight class at all. I think you should be focusing on healthy body composition and slowly packing on as much muscle as possible over time. I always tell people, when you fill up a weight class, you don't need to super bulk into it quickly. Fill it out slowly over time. But oftentimes that'll happen just from you not restricting yourself, adhering to a specific diet, and just trying to slowly add size over time. Because you're going to enjoy it a lot longer. You're not going to burn out as quickly. You're going to get strong. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel healthy. And I can guarantee you 9.9 times out of 10, you're going to be more competitive long-term than what you would be if you restrict yourself for years in a weight class just so you can keep your 400 dots and your number 20 placing at college nationals. I'm just being real. That's what it is. It's like, why are you doing this? Well, I just won't be as competitive. Bro, you're number 50. You're not competitive anyway. Just move up.
No, I think that is the perfect answer though. And yeah, I think people think, because obviously we're in a weight class sport and it's different, like you said, when you're at that top level, whether that be maybe top level at national or international, yeah, you probably should try and maximize your weight class. But you don't need to weigh, let's say you're in the female 63s, you don't need to weigh 63. You can weigh 60, right? Same as if you, let's say you sit at 65 kilos and you're trying to decide whether to cut to 60 or stay at 69. You don't need to fill the 69s. You can weigh at 65, 66, see how you get on there. And then, like you said, are you making progress? Look at things like that. Would you benefit from eating a bit more? Would you benefit from actually like getting leaner? Like, let's say you're in like the 84s on the women's side and you're like myself, I sit about 87, 88 most of the year and I compete in the 84s. And then it's like, well, sometimes it's that decision of, well, would you actually be better off just being a light 84 plus, at least temporarily? And then when you build that total and you get to that point where actually if I cut, I would be competitive with an 84, then look to cut. Like, you don't have to identify within a weight class from day one. Like, that's something that can come with years.
Absolutely. It's like, where do you feel best? Where do you sit comfortably? And don't get me wrong, the reverse can be true too. There's some people where it's like, hey, you don't need to be in this heavier weight class. It's like, you're like have some millers like, hey, let's be real. Like, we have a lot of body fat we can lose and it's not going to hurt your strength. You're probably going to feel better. Let's just see where you end up. If you just end up being in the same weight class but lighter, or you're in the lower weight class, cool. Enjoy that and then let yourself build up upon that steadily. Because I am very big on that in general. Like, hey, you want to maximize your body composition in weight class. Like, if you're somebody where, you know, you're like 20% plus body fat as a male lifter, right? So it's going to be different with women. Women, I think, should let themselves be a slightly higher body fat for, you know, hormone regulation, everything like that. But it's this thing where it's like, if you know that, okay, I have a lot of extra fat that I don't need, by all means, have a lean frame. So I'm very big on, before you fill out a weight class, you want to have a lean frame to build upon it. Because if you're like 20% plus body fat percentage already, and then you bulk to the next weight class, you're not going to feel good. You're going to regret it. You're going to want to keep going, cut bulk. Where for powerlifting, especially if you think about the fact that the average powerlifter only does 1 to 2 meets and maybe competes for 2 to 3 years, that's it. You want to maximize your time in that. And you're not doing that if you're going cut bulk. You want to spend as much time at maintenance or building as possible. So if you spend the first little phase to kind of have a lean frame and then build upon that, that's going to be more ideal anyway. And then when you fill a weight class out, just don't try to force it. Like, are you gaining weight at a steady rate? Cool. Are you feeling good? Are you recovering? Is your composition on point? Cool. Go with that. But like you put it perfectly. Like, I think people feel like there's no point in moving up if I don't fill out the weight class. What do you mean? If you feel stronger, if you perform better and your total's going up. And here's the thing too, because a lot of people, why do a lot of like non-competitive people as far as placing, like being a lower weight class? Oh, my dots. Well, guess what? Your dots is going to be great if you're getting stronger, but you're not gaining weight too quickly. So, yeah. Yeah,
no, I think that's probably a good time to start wrapping up as well, because I have kept you for longer than I intended to. Before we wrap up, though, firstly, want to ask, as a lifter, what you've got coming up?
Say again, as a lifter?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my next meet will be Powerlifting America Nationals in April.
I did wonder if you were going to say that. So I assume that's going to be a very busy period for you.
Yeah. The last time, the past couple of years, I've opted out of competing at nationals and have decided to just handle, because it's like when you're handling 30, 40 people, you don't really feel like competing. So last time that I handled and competed at nationals was 2022. But I was like, it's been a minute. I feel like getting back out there. But so yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I assume that's probably what's next for you as a coach as well. There will be nationals, or have you got local meets before that?
No local meets before that. Like, I have a few clients who will be competing like sporadically a little bit, but none that I'll be going to. That'll be the next one I'll be traveling to. Yeah.
Do you think, in a way, competing at that nationals, because this is something I've kind of thought about before, like I've had lifters do the same meet, like lifters talk about doing the same meet that I've got coming up. And I was like, that's probably going to be a good thing for me, because I'll be so distracted from what I'm doing and the stress of my own competition that I'll be focusing on them. And I wondered if you were similar in that, actually, obviously you'll be physically tired if you're handling people the whole time. But do you think, in a way, having that distraction of your lifters competing the same time frame as you are might actually help you in some ways, because you're literally just, you're not going to care as much about your own performance because you're going to be so invested in theirs?
So yes and no. It does help, but not for that reason. I'm not going to lie. I definitely still care about my performance, like heavily. I think about it like daily. But what's cool about it is I love prepping as a team. Like, it's so cool, like, you know, because so many of us are lined up for the same meet, a lot of us have our heaviest days on the same weekend. So I love that. I love seeing like, oh, Petrie did this, Jamar did this, my client Avi did this, I did this, or like, you know, being in like, you know, hitting something like, hey, y'all, it's week 4, it's time to show out, let's go do our thing. So it helps me in that way, because it's like, I'm not doing this alone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm prepping with my team. We're going to show out as a team. And in a way, it almost puts more pressure on me, but in a good way. It's like, I know my clients are going to show out. I got to show out with them, but that I thrive with that. So, yeah.
No, I think that's something that I really like about with your coaching as well. Like, you can tell that you guys are a team, which I think some coaching companies have, some don't. But I think even if your clients probably don't know each other, like, you are team craftsmanship. Like, you all, like you said, you're prepping together, you're going to show out together. And I think that's a really cool thing to have as well.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I'm very happy with the sense of community that I see my clients have, not just with each other, but you see them extending that to others as well. Like, they're all about building each other up, uplifting each other. And I love that.
Perfect. So just quickly before we wrap up, I'm assuming you probably don't have any coaching spaces at the moment, but where can people reach out to you if they did want to ask you questions or potentially look out for coaching and things in the future?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at the Swolefessor. You can find me on YouTube, the Swolefessor, just one word. And then for any type of inquiries for anything coaching or mentorship related, it's the Swolefessor@gmail.com.
Perfect. And anything else you want to shout out before we wrap up?
Powerlifting Now, of course. You can follow us on Instagram at Powerlifting Now. You can also subscribe to our subscription service, powerlifting-now.com. Like I said, anything you want to learn about powerlifting, from lifting to coaching or anything in between, is there. Of course, I want to shout out my wife, Amber. Once again, big part of what I do is her love, her support. And of course, shout out to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. All glory to God for everything that I do. And yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining me.